I've probably talked to a couple hundred people on that pod, and the common thread is there's a level of focus that's required if you want to hit the outsized outcomes. That's not saying everyone needs to go for the outsized outcomes, but if you want like a Warren Buffett type of scenario where they're holding like $188 billion in cash right now and they own a bunch of companies, well, it's just relentless focus at the end of the day. It's not so much about diversification and the late Charlie Munger. But Charlie Munger, I was watching a video yesterday. He was just saying that, if you really have an edge in what you understand, you really don't need to diversify that much. I think the problem with a lot of marketers, especially affiliate marketers, is that we try to do too many things. And that's one of the biggest lessons. And it wasn't until I got punched in the face myself where I learned that that lesson actually makes a lot of sense.
I'm John Wright, and you're listening to Affiliate BI, the business intelligence and affiliate marketing podcast brought to you by StatsJohn. Welcome to the Affiliate BI podcast. I'm chatting with Eric Siu, who runs the Leveling Up podcast, which as of today has over 1,000 episodes since 2014. He's also the co-host of the Marketing School podcast with Neil Patel, and he's the founder of Single Grain, which is a digital marketing agency. And I'll stop right there because I could go on for quite a while. Eric, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. Excited to be here.
So I want to start off with a powerful question, which is for 10 years of doing this Leveling Up podcast, featuring guests like Pat Flynn, Alex Hermosi, Patrick Campbell, and getting to pick the brains of some of these amazing entrepreneurs on how they level up. What are some of your best learnings for just leveling up and like the best insights from all of that?
Yeah, I think the common thread, I think I've probably talked to a couple hundred people on that pod, and the common thread is there's a level of focus that's required if you want to hit the outsized outcomes. That's not saying everyone needs to go for the outsized outcomes, but if you want like a Warren Buffett type of scenario where they're holding like $188 billion in cash right now and they own a bunch of companies, well, it's just relentless focus at the end of the day. Not so much about diversification and the late Charlie Munger, and you can't really see them, but Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are over here. They're these two bronze busts if you're watching the video. But Charlie Munger, I was watching a video yesterday. He was just saying that if you really have an edge in what you understand, you really don't need to diversify that much. I think the problem with a lot of marketers, especially affiliate marketers, is that we try to do too many things. And that's one of the biggest lessons. And it wasn't until I got punched in the face myself where I learned that that lesson actually makes a lot of sense.
I think I understand because I've made those mistakes for nearly 20 years, and it took me the punch in the face to realize, you know what, just do one thing, sell your affiliate businesses, build the affiliate software that you're meant to do. And yeah, it was a pretty painful lesson, but I'm glad I at least learned it.
There you go. Focus is king.
Okay, so I was introduced to you by Michal Suski, who's from Surfer SEO, and he's like, you got to talk to Eric about programmatic SEO. So I want to ask you, what is the right way of doing programmatic SEO today, given what we know what's happening in the background with Google?
Yeah, totally. So setting the context for everyone, there was a Google helpful content update, and there was like a basically like a Google AI update that happened in the last couple months. And actually, as of this week, there's another update that happened with the site reputation abuse update that happened, right? And so, and we can go into all of those. But the main thing is, if I were to answer your question directly, programmatic SEO is I'll share a real life example here. It's about building templated pages at scale based on geographic keywords or different type of you can have different type of modifiers, right? Could be like HubSpot alternatives, Salesforce alternatives, those types of keywords, right? Now, if I were to simplify it based on geographic or geography, you might do fun things to do in Rome, fun things to do in Japan, fun things to do in Los Angeles, right? And that's why a site like TripAdvisor drives over 131 million visitors per month from SEO alone, and that traffic alone, if they were to pay for it, would be $67 million a month for that traffic. So it's a lot of money. And they rank for about 121 million keywords or so. Something like that. Or actually, sorry, I got that wrong. It's about 24 million keywords. Bad memory. But the key thing for them is they're creating so many permutations of these pages and they're generating these pages programmatically that when you combine the sheer amount of volume that they're producing plus their domain authority, they're able to rank for all these, right? Now, the key thing with if you want to do programmatic SEO, if we want to get into it a little bit, is that you need to make sure that you're designing these page templates, and you need to make sure that the keywords that you're going after are actually the keywords that make sense for you. And often these are middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel type keywords. And you got to make sure that you're pruning these pages too, because if you're going to produce tens of thousands of these pages, you can't produce a bunch of crap, right? You actually have to be reviewing these pages. So I'll stop right there. I'll pause for a second, but that's the high level for programmatic SEO.
It makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you could just blast out 200 pages easily, but if you're not actually going through and, like you said, pruning them, I think that's where maybe everyone makes a mistake, and probably where I have a fear of actually trying to do it, but going, okay, if I'm going to launch these, how do I do it in a careful way where there's still quality behind it? And like you said, it's got to have value. Otherwise, why bother?
Yeah. So John, one thing that we do with that is internally we built at Single Grain, we built an internal tool that allows us, we basically quality score these pages. And so if we produce, let's say 10,000 pages, let's say, 2,000 of these pages don't drive any traffic in the first 30 days. Well, those pages are automatically going to be deleted. So we're programmatically doing that piece. And then, initially when we start with the first batch of, let's say, the first batch of 25 to 50 pages, we might have a human in a loop to just double check those pages. And then if all 50 of those look good, chances are the rest are going to look good. And then we'll have that quality score tool in there to kind of double check and automatically delete pages at scale.
And how would you recommend, or what are some ideas behind using ChatGPT to try to come up with like ideas?
Yeah. So for ChatGPT, let's say that we use like a Ahrefs, or we use like a SEMrush or a Surfer for it to come up with different keyword ideas. So initially, let's use a TripAdvisor example. So, hey, I'm a travel website and or sorry, let's reset for a second. Here's the prompt. It might be you're the best SEO in the world and you're trying to optimize using programmatic SEO and you're trying to drive millions of visitors, right? So you're setting the tone for the prompt right there. And then you're saying, okay, our website ranks for keywords such as fun things to do in Japan, fun things to do in Rome, fun things to do in blah blah blah. And then we're worldwide, right? And we want to aim for the biggest countries or the biggest cities in the world. Can you give me those keywords, right? And then that could be an idea that they'll shoot off to you. That maybe they'll give you a list of maybe 100 keywords or so, and then you can dump those keywords into like an Ahrefs, and they'll suggest another set of keywords for you to go after, and then you can build your list that way, and then you can prune the keywords that you don't necessarily want to rank for. That's one way you can go about it.
Yeah, I saw one of your posts, I think it was 6 months ago on LinkedIn, that talked about how you could use ChatGPT for one of these examples. And I actually copied it for affiliate marketing, and I was kind of surprised at how insightful it was. I just assumed that ChatGPT wouldn't really understand my
Mhm.
space in affiliate marketing, but it basically gave me things that I'm like, oh, I feel guilty that I'm not even doing that.
Yeah, it does. It does, and that's a good point, John. It does. When you give it a role and you say you're the best copywriter in the world or you're the best YouTube headline and thumbnail creator, it does a pretty damn good job of making headlines really interesting or whatever it is that you need them to do. Because once you give it a role, it's going to hone in on the data that it does have that it's trained on already. And it's going to give you something that's a lot more specific. If you're too broad with what you're asking for, then unfortunately it's pulling from a broad data set. And the answer that you're going to get is going to be a more broad answer.
Okay. Now, I want to try to come up with some good ideas for the affiliate marketing space. So, we're a SaaS company. We're like the QuickBooks for affiliates, but we believe our affiliates are problem aware, but not solution aware. So, one of our go to markets is to do affiliate program reviews and then the categories. What are some ideas that you have for not just doing programmatic for the sake of it, but maybe a good strategy or a good idea behind it?
So specifically in your space?
Yes.
Okay. So again, you are just to recap again, you are it's like a QuickBooks affiliate, so you're targeting people that are small business owners?
No, it's like the QuickBooks for affiliates. So, it pulls all your stats and commissions into a single app.
Got it. Okay. Great. And then you're asking about how I would specifically use this with AI?
Well, it could be AI, but it could be just like a generic strategy of going, okay, what are like, we know from the categories that could be very programmatic. So it's like gambling, as one example, has different niches. And then there's different countries that have different markets within each thing, as one example.
Yeah. So I don't know your space. I'm trying to figure out like what it sounds like I need to understand your product a little more. Is it so it's like it sounds to me like it's an all-in-one type of affiliate tool.
That's pretty accurate. It's like a CRM, it does business intelligence, but the most important central part is how much money did I make today, yesterday, stores all the data right down to the campaign level.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so what I would do in this scenario, and it might be an element of programmatic to start with. You might not even need programmatic here, but when I think about software, and we'll go back to my example about alternatives, right? So HubSpot alternatives. So you would look at all your competitors and do competitor plus alternatives, right? And then you would also do another modifier might be your competitors versus your company name, right? So versus does really well, alternatives do really well when it comes to software. And then from there, I probably would have to go top of the funnel because there just aren't a lot of keywords here. Because again, like programmatic works really well for e-commerce if you have a lot of SKUs, or it works really well if you have a lot of geographic locations, right? That's where it works out well. And then you have a big multiplier effect there. I think in your situation, you're gonna have to go one level higher if you want to get programmatic to work. And then I think you're gonna have to think about, okay, how do I check my gambling revenue every day? How do I check my, niche revenue every day, right? And I think there's a lot of questions that can be answered. And then where you add that modifier of the niche the affiliate niche, and then I think you can create a lot of content around that, and go from there.
It sounds so simple, but I kind of feel guilty that we didn't even think of something as basic as like, how do we get our revenue every day? Just to give you some feedback of ideas that we considered were how to get the APIs from the affiliate program so you can pull the data in. And ironically enough, because people are problem aware but not solution aware, they look for those keywords because they're trying to do this themselves. And they're like, I had no idea you even existed.
Yep, exactly. So that's perfect, right? I mean, you'd have all these blog posts, and then you have many call to actions as the blog post goes through. Just you'd CRO those, right? And you'd have like a product led growth motion. I don't know how it works for you guys, but you might have like a freemium version that they can sign up for, and you can get them into the funnel, right? So you would know your funnel a lot better than me, but that's how I might think about it.
Yeah, we've been product led growth all the way for the last year, and I don't think we want to change that.
Great, happy it worked for you.
So the next question is, I feel that social media and videos becoming more prominent and more influential. And would you say this is going to be probably a stronger go to market for affiliates given SEO?
Yeah. I mean, SEO is getting harder. I think you and I are both aware of that. But I would say to me, YouTube is the biggest opportunity for the next decade. I just don't see that going anywhere. I think LinkedIn and Twitter are certainly nice right now because they have good organic reach. And then, whatever it is that you're selling, I think you just got to focus on where the organic reach is. And the interesting thing, if I were to go higher level right now, is when you look at some of the most successful investors in the world, whether it's Mark Andreessen or you look at Brad Gerstner, you look at Bill Gurley, all these people have invested in some of the best companies in the world. And Ben Horowitz, right, who wrote The Hard Thing About Hard Things, he has a podcast with Mark Andreessen. So you have a lot of these investors that are creating content now. It's because they're realizing that the the new customer acquisition, the new demand generation is actually creators at the end of the day, right? Because distribution is becoming more and more democratized and SEO is becoming harder. And so, traditional media is kind of going down and you have companies like ESPN, like they're struggling, they're starting to struggle a little bit. And you have platforms like the TikToks of the world, who knows what's going to happen to them, and YouTube's where you're going to be able to capture the attention. And so the fact that we're doing this right now, I think John, you see the value in it. To be able to post this podcast to YouTube, chop it up for audio as well, and then chop it up for shorts, and then even chop up and use those shorts and post, have a caption and post it to LinkedIn. That's the way to get organic reach right now. And those that are playing the game are going to reap the rewards for the next decade.
Yes. Well, you already answered another question, but given someone who's been doing podcasting for 10 years plus your other podcasts, the question I kind of don't want to ask is like, should I do two podcasts?
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I posted a thought yesterday about how I'm evolving the Leveling Up podcast, but because there's too many interview podcasts right now. And so you have to zig. So here's a little side lesson. When everyone's doing the same thing, you have to zig where other people are zagging. So 10 years ago when I was doing it, it was novel, right? And then it's very much interview podcasts have very much become a red ocean. And my thought recently was like, I have a lot of stuff to say, but when I do interview podcasts, I want to respect the other person. I want to get insights from them. And so it comes from like a situation where I'm just trying to learn, but the audience doesn't really learn about me, right? And so now I'm thinking about changing it up where maybe 70-80% of the time, John, I'm just focused on doing solo episodes, much like how Andrew Huberman does solo episodes. And then maybe 20% of the time, those are the people that I really, really, really want to talk to. And then that balance will leave me satisfied from a learning and teaching standpoint. So that doesn't answer your question directly. But that's how I'm thinking about it. So should you have two podcasts? Um, I don't know because for leveling up, again, that was satisfying my curiosity. For marketing school, that's Neil and I reacting to marketing news. But I think what was missing with leveling up was I need another forum for me to go deep on research and teach there, right? So I think it's really whatever works for you. And if it's 2 podcasts, 3 podcasts, 4 podcasts, whatever works for you.
Yeah. I did remember listening to one episode from you where you talked literally about this, where it's like zig when everyone's zagging or something like that. And it's an interesting insight because I think a lot of people, when they understand the power of a podcast channel or YouTube, they, they go into it, but they're not thinking, what can I do to separate when more people are coming into this? But the only thing that gives me comfort is, I mean, maybe you know this to be true, is not everyone wants to do what you've done or do what Mark's done or set up their own podcast and get uncomfortable and make all the mistakes.
Right. Well, here's what I will say. I mean, it's the bar to start a podcast now has never been lower. And so you see a lot of NBA players starting podcasts, right? So Paul George has a podcast, Carmelo Anthony has a podcast, and Dwayne Wade starting a podcast, LeBron James and JJ Redick just started a podcast. Shannon Sharp has one. Like everyone has a podcast now, right? And it's kind of entertaining, but I'm realizing they're all kind of just saying the same thing now, and it just becomes this echo chamber, right? So I do think it's very important to see where other people are zagging because the comments you eventually get from people is like, oh my God, this is such a breath of fresh air, right? And when you start to get comments like that, you're moving in the right direction. So, I've just, the final thing I'll say around this, John, is I realized I needed to make a change when I met with someone about a month ago. He wanted to do like a business deal with me. And when I got with him on the call, he was kind of, he didn't mean to, but I could tell he was kind of talking from a position of power over me, right? And I just kind of like let it go. And then as we talked more and more, he realized he's like, "Oh crap, like you're actually legit." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I thought you were just a guy that like did these YouTube podcasts, but like you're actually an entrepreneur and you're like in all these groups like YPO and things like that." I'm like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't have known from your YouTube." And I'm like, "Okay, something needs to change."
That might be true, but I personally found that ridiculous, but it's understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, not everyone, and I appreciate that, John, but it's not everyone has the time to do the research and they only see what they see, right? So it's good that he caught that content, but how do we make it easy to discover the whole enchilada?
All right, let's pivot right back into AI. Are you kind of concerned for some people that maybe they're going to be totally lost to sea and displaced by AI?
Yeah, I mean, I told my team a pretty crude thing 2 weeks ago during an all hands. I said, you know the book Sapiens?
No.
Okay, so there's this book called Sapiens. It's a pretty popular book, which I haven't read through the whole thing, but I read the author's other book. So Sapiens is a pretty good book. Talks about the history of mankind, but he wrote this other book. I forgot the full name of the author. His name's Yuval, but he wrote another book called 21 Questions for the 21st Century, and he has a chapter in the book that talks about how there will be a useless class of human beings. And when you think about the power of AI, and Elon just said this in an interview maybe 2 to 3 days ago about how artificial intelligence is going to be way more powerful than biological intelligence. And you just think about it this way, John, like what you and I have learned through our entire lives is just studying pattern recognition. And when these large language models are being trained on data, they're just detecting patterns and they're using inference to predict the next whatever the answer is that you're looking for, right? And that's all it is at the end of the day. It's training off of pattern recognition. And so if you think that what's lacking right now is overall energy and compute, there's going to be more of that. There's going to be more and more chips coming online. Technology is going to continue to advance. There's just no way that computers won't be smarter than us. This is just the very beginning right now. And so if that's the case, I just told the team, I was like, guys, like, I don't know about you. I don't want to be useless, right? And if you want to be useless, like, don't work here, right? Like, I will do whatever it takes to make sure that you'll never be useless working at single grain. And what that's going to require is that's going to require us to be at least the top 5% of people. We can only hire the top 5% of people. We have to be very strong at innovation. And to be very strong at innovation, you have to be very strong at strategy, right? That's what's going to separate us from the other people. And strategy leads to good creative as well. And so if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot of people that are, working off of universal basic income, if that's what you want to call it. And here's the other thing that I think will actually be a blessing in disguise, John. So I'm going way out there right now, way beyond marketing. I think people are going to realize that once they have universal basic income and they have a lot of time for leisure, that leisure is actually not the objective. Because I don't know about you, John, but maybe in the very beginning when we were a lot younger, we were like, you know what? I would rather, I would just love to retire and live on the beach, right? And just, and just relax. But that gets boring so quickly. So people are going to realize that leisure isn't the goal and they should be productive. And I think the world's going to become a lot more productive with humans working on different things. The world's going to become a lot more creative over time.
I hope you're right in the sense that, we need kind of a purpose in life. And maybe some people, they just get complacent and they get into, a certain pattern, but I hope that's the truth. Um, Jumping on what you just said, I talked to someone who's got an AI company and I asked them a question, something similar to what you said. I said, what's your take? Are we going to be, is it panic or like opportunity and party time? And he basically said it's panic. So I said, what about people that work in business intelligence and data visualization? He's like, yeah, most of that could be replaced with AI. And I was like, wow, there's so many people going into business intelligence right now. Like they're literally starting a career, learning these skills, and to think that this could be just eliminated so quickly, I'm like, I was telling people a year ago, this is the space to get into.
Yeah. Well, John, I think I partially agree and disagree with him. I think short term with AI over the next 5, 10 years, there will be panic. I think long term though, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a net positive for society. Because when we think about every revolution that's happened, an industrial revolution, a lot of farmers were displaced, right? And then they found different work. So and then they panicked in the very beginning. Oh my God, we're all gonna lose our jobs, right? The printing press when that first came out, like things change over time. And I do believe that because we're adding more intelligence to the world, that it's going to be a net lift for everyone. It's going to be a rising tide lifts all boats. And but again, people are going to freak out. I think in over the next 5, 10 years, but I think it'll balance out over time.
Okay. Pivoting to something else, if people say that someone that goes from sales into marketing, they'd be a good fit. And then people that go from marketing to sales, it's like you bring insights into another field. So would you say that from your experience being on the digital marketing side, maybe I'm assuming less on the affiliate marketing side, what could people in the e-commerce space pull in to affiliate marketing that would kind of give them a level up or an edge?
Yeah. So on the e-commerce side, let's see. So e-commerce people are I mean, affiliates are very focused on the numbers as well, especially their numbers. Um, and on the e-commerce side, there's a lot of I think people are very open to experimentation. They're very open to trying new products, new services, new tools. I think people in e-commerce are very open to partnerships as well. I think a lot of affiliates they like to work as kind of solo guns. And so I think that's something they can learn as well. But a lot of things, when I think about affiliates are very rapid testers. They move very quickly and they're quick to try new things too. Same thing with ecom people, right? And so I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a lot of ecom people that I know are at the next level. It comes down to the relationships that they're willing to build. So whether it comes to partnerships or with people or the people that they hire, I think they know how to build teams, they know how to work with people, and they know how to scale big businesses. So I think that bring that over to affiliates will take the affiliates to the next level. Because when I speak at like an affiliate world or something like that, people are very focused much more on me. I think, big e-commerce companies are much more focused on we, and that helps everybody grow.
Makes sense. Next question is, as someone who invests in companies and startups, what are you looking for in founders as well as businesses to invest in?
Yeah. So one obvious thing would be, so when I look to invest in companies, I look for a large TAM, so large total addressable market. But the biggest thing that I look for is I'm looking for a killer. And let me give you an example. So I invested in a company called 8 Sleep, and I actually spoke to the CEO last week. We did a live podcast in Miami, and his name's Mateo. Mateo, he played sports hardcore. He raced cars before as well. And the key thing about him is that he sees this as a company that he's just going to work on for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So he has a very long time horizon too. So sleep, obviously, that affects the entire world. Initially, I was like, "Okay, how big can this be?" It seems like a mattress company. It can't be that big, right? When I spoke to him, his vision's there. It's relentless focus as well. He said this, "The sleep products that we're building, eventually they're gonna have the ability to MRI you and check if you have any issues with your body and make recommendations." I'm like, "Oh, then you can when you make these recommendations, you can collect an affiliate cut on these as well." He's like, "Yeah, that's maybe where we might go." And he's constantly shipping, he's constantly looking for ideas, he's learning all the time as well. So a lot comes from the founder. The founder has this invisible hammer where they can just make things happen. And so you want a founder that's a machine when it comes to learning, a very open-minded founder, very focused founder as well, and someone that just works on it all the time. And that's totally him. That's all he thinks about. And now I'm like, okay, this is not just going to be a multi-billion dollar company. It can probably be it can probably be $1 trillion plus company over a long time horizon, right? So I hope that's the case, but that's a good example of that.
Very insightful. I hope that's kind of what I think I am, but that's for someone else to judge. But very good insights. And I try to look at other founders when they give me their pitch decks to share to investors. And I'm looking for the same thing. I'm like, I can't refer you unless I believe in you too.
Right? And then the other thing, John, too, is you have to believe in the founder because you're betting on the jockey, but also do you believe in the space, right? So I'm really into longevity, health. I'm into the blockchain as well, and so I'm into those things. I'm gonna bet on it, and I'm okay looking at this as I'm probably gonna lose 99% of my bets, and hopefully that 1% makes up for everything. Because John, I have a buddy, and maybe you do too, but he put like a $25,000 check into this one company, and it became like became $80 million for him, right? So those are the types of home runs that you're looking for.
I wish one day. Last question is, what do you see as the future of affiliate marketing as it intersects with business intelligence?
Yeah. I'll give you, maybe this is a side answer. I was talking about this with my actually, we're building a new product internally, and I said, "Look, with AI, I'll do AI plus affiliate." So right now, the problem with affiliate, so let's say we're talking about a couple of different products right now on this podcast. We're not gonna go out of our way to make, at least for me, I'm not gonna go out of my way to make all these affiliate links. Now, imagine if you have an AI out there that will automatically say, "Hey, John, I will go out there and, make these affiliate links for you automatically, okay? And maybe we'll take a 5-10% cut on every sale, every affiliate sale that you get," and it just scales out, right? Like, someone needs to build that solution, and, that's gonna be really interesting because people just don't have the time to make these things. It's too manual.
I agree. We're actually working on something similar where we're not sure if we want to become an affiliate network, but we think we want to become like something like a tracking technology
Mhm.
where it's the analytics, but it's also the ad tech. So
Yep,
what we're looking to do is take the design, the programming, and the data away from affiliates. So imagine you can say, well, give me a list of products in this market and give me the entire list of them. Give me
yep,
the comparison tables and just power it by data so it's compliant and does everything. And the idea is that it should be powered by your own data.
yep.
Well, what's converting better? What's converting better over time?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So it sounds like it might be a closed model, you can have an open model too, but all the data that you're gonna have down the road, I mean, these are all patterns and you can figure out what you wanna do with that too, so that's exciting.
yeah, the AI playbook is almost infinite. And that's why I like talking with AI advisors going, what should we do? And they all say the same thing. They're like, do not share your data with anyone. It's
Yep,
like, don't partner with the AI company yet. It's be patient.
totally.
Eric, how can people get a hold of you? I think most people know, but we'll include all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Eric O, S as in sugar, IU, so Eric Siu, and you can go to YouTube, just search for Leveling Up with Eric Siu, or you can search for marketing school there, and those are the best ways to find, all the stuff that we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Affiliate BI podcast. I'd like to take this time to ask for a small favor to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps us expand our reach to rank higher in podcast directories and reach more listeners.